Pastor's Corner. Hope you had a blessed, beautiful week. Hope this week is also blessed and full of peace. We thank God for His mercy and grace, and we thank you for joining us. I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, all those good things. It really helps us out. We're going to go to the second book of Corinthians, chapter 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to start with the third verse. And it reads, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." And this is where we want to drill down on. I wanted to go what preceded this next verse. "Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." Last week we went into the mind, double-minded mind. We didn't get a lot of time in the double-minded mind, but we talked about the mind, the different minds that we are capable of having. But this one right here, where it talks about the warfare, and then it talks about bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. That tells us a lot there of bringing our thoughts to obedience, which again, I've explained this throughout our different sessions, to understand that in our thoughts, they are in our control. Yes, thoughts can be thrown at us from different things, but it's up to us what we're going to do with our thoughts. Are we going to, what they would call, entertain the wrong thought, or are we going to throw the wrong thought out? Because what we do inside of our thoughts is eventually going to manifest outwardly. What we think about, whatever it is, if it's a project, if it's a goal, if it's an offense, or if it's love, it's peace, it's agreement, whatever we do there in our thoughts are going to eventually come outward into our lives. Our thoughts will become words. Our thoughts will become actions. Our thoughts will become our world. Our thoughts will become our world. We cannot speak of good things, praise, giving God thanks, gratefulness, all those things like that. But inside of our head, we're full of negative thoughts. Because those negative thoughts are eventually going to become manifested through our words. And our heart will birth out thoughts. Our heart will birth out thoughts. I've said this for many years. Where our heart is, the Bible says, where our treasures are, our heart's where our treasures are, whatever that may be. When the Bible says to put our treasures in heaven. Yes, put our treasures in heaven. But our heart, where our heart is in life, where our heart is, eventually our body's going to find itself wherever our heart is at. It's going to follow our heart. If our heart is thankful and grateful, full of virtue, praise, thankfulness, our body will find itself there. But at the same time, if our heart is in the wrong place, eventually our body is going to find itself in the wrong place. But what happens inside of our thoughts? And bringing the thoughts into captivity. And that's where we all have to use some wisdom in where we put our energy. So throughout a day, whatever our tasks are, whatever our duties are, whatever our job is, whatever we have to do, our families, whatever it is, take kids to school, cook meals, um, pay bills, go whatever it is, going to work, a construction worker, someone writing computer code, whatever it is, our mind is going to be occupied in certain things. But regardless, we're going to have times where we have a space to fill our thoughts, where it's going to go. For myself, I always have a lot of things going in my life, coming at me, and I do my best to navigate through those things. And I've said this 100 times, I've said it 1,000 times, and I do not wake up and turn my phone on. I don't do that. I wake up, get my thoughts together, and then I begin to pray. I begin to pray as I'm coming into my day, and I walk through my prayer. It's to start my day because I need to do that. I need to bring everything into a structure, and it's not religion. It's not legalism. It's order. It's having a process and a structure in my life. It's not out of fear, but out of love, and go through those steps. And then decide, okay, what am I going to tackle? What am I going to address today? And most people, what they're going to address is what they say, the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel's gonna the squeaky wheel's gonna get addressed. But we have to go through these different things. So as I have all these things going on in my life, I have to decide where my thoughts are going to be. And I have other things. As I have this tablet, I do so much on there. Um, and of course, I can do emails, and I actually can text off of this. And I enjoy that I have that access. I can do a lot of things there. I can communicate. But I also have the books I'm working on in here. And when I do find certain windows, I'll go in there and work on my books. And it's a decision I have to make in my mind. And things can get thrown at me, phone calls, uh, text messages, just things out in the open and public, just stuff happening. And it's not always great. It's not always gratefulness. It's not always thankfulness that's going to come at me and at you. And then I have to say, okay, how much am I going to dwell on this thought over here of, of what might have not been a peaceful, great thing? It could be a dark, negative thing that happened, some situation, um, things that happened just in life. But bringing my thoughts into captivity as you bring your thoughts into captivity. The old school, if I could say the old school, people would do crossword puzzles. Do crossword puzzles. And they're still out there. Some people do it. I've known there's probably apps for crossword puzzles. And people would sit there and they would do these and go over them. Different things like that. I know a lot of people might play games on their phone, and different things. Of course, there's social media. That Social media is a lot like a lot of things in life. It could be a blessing. It could be a curse. It's just like a lot of things. And using discipline on that. I saw this meme that said, "You don't need to get offended on social media. Just go past it." There's a lot of truth to that. Don't read it and engage in something that you know is not edifying. You just page over it. You just keep it going. And it doesn't take long that you could just pick up, okay, this is not a thing that's edifying. I'm going to move past it. I'm going to keep going. That's where we're controlling our thoughts. And I'm not going to get all bent out of shape. Somebody puts something or whatever. I'm just going to, because my thoughts I have to decide, and going through my day. And then when I finish my day, that I can go through and do my proper shutting down in my mind. Because then when I go to sleep, when you go to sleep, we enter into another world. And that world we enter into is going to be created a lot from what we thought through that day. If that makes sense to you, what we did on that day in our thoughts. But I get it. I can be asleep and I have this dream that's like has nothing to do with anything of that day or that week, or like, where did this come from? Or somebody shows up in my dream that I haven't thought about, haven't had any conversation with. For myself, what I do with that is I pray for that individual. Occasionally I might reach out to that individual. I do. I'll reach out even if I haven't spoken to them for many, many years because of just life. And I'll maybe send a message and praying for you. Or there was one individual when I was in Africa, I had a vivid dream about someone I hadn't spoken to in many, many years. And it was a vivid dream. I reached out to them. They responded while I was in Africa. I just touched base and told them, I said, I know that God laid this on my heart. Prayed for the individual. And we've since been touching base a little bit here and there. But that may happen in my sleep. But then you wake up and you're back at it. But you go the wrong place with your mind, and it can take you down the wrong path. And that's where we have to bring the thoughts into captivity. We have to harness, as I said last week, we got to harness those thoughts and how we speak. What is our language? Okay, we could say English or Spanish, or we have people from Africa, Swahili. We can say that, but even though if we're all speaking English, we speak differently. We communicate differently, and that's a big thing to understand in how that we communicate. What's the language we speak to one another, and that takes some wisdom to understand. This person speaks this way, and this person over here speaks this way, and you have to separate those things and understand that. But in the communication, you could pick up if that person is in a dark place. You can pick it up. You don't have to be a prophet with the gift of discernment. You could tell somebody has some darkness in their thinking, and then others you could tell, okay, this person is engaging in a place of the power, the leading inspiration of the Lord. I'm trying to pick some words there that can explain that when somebody engages properly in the way of the Lord, in His ways. My Hebrew teacher told me this one day, because we'd study Hebrew together, and his native tongue was Hebrew. It wasn't English. He spoke English well, but it wasn't his native tongue. Hebrew was his native tongue. But one day he told me, he goes, "You think in Hebrew." He goes, "Your thoughts are in Hebrew, your actions are in Hebrew." But I know what he meant, because he was very knowledgeable in the word of the Lord in Hebrew, that he was saying that I think from a place of the way of God, of the way of the Lord, or the word of the Lord. That's what he was saying, how I speak, how I carry myself. And it just came back to me recently, this conversation. This has been many years that he had told me that. He's passed away since. But when he told me that, and recently it came up with all the stuff going on in the news with the Israel and the Gaza Strip with Hamas. You know, all the things that are going on there. This thought of what he had told me came up, But I was explaining to my wife, I filter things, if I could use the word filter, to the best of my ability through the leading of the Lord and His Word. And I do my best to look to filter it. What does God say? What does His Word say? And I do my best to filter it. Now, I can't speak all that. I can't share all that because it's too detailed, it's too in depth. But it's something that I do in my life. I filter it, not out of fear, not out of legalism. At this point in my life, it's just a part of me now to do that. And something happens and I'll go, I can't react. I can't engage in that because it'll disrupt my flow. I have to stay in my flow, engaged, and stay plugged in to my connection with the Lord. And I could go in depth there. And I had some in-depth conversation with one of the bishops in Africa about not looking to pray up, as they say. You just stay in it. You don't have moments where you go high into it and then you dive out of it. You just stay in it. It's a lifestyle. You just live it. And that's thoughts, 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 thoughts. And as I say, it's an original thought for me to use the term filtering. Filtering our thoughts. And it's okay, what would God say? What does the Lord say about the situation? What does the Lord say about the decision? What does the Lord say about what we are saying, discussing, sharing? Is it okay with the Lord what we're saying? I'm not talking about my teaching right now, but in a conversation. What we might say about an individual. Is the Lord okay with what we're saying about that individual? The Bible talks about watching what you say in your bed chambers, in your bedroom, because a little birdie will take it. Think about that. Will take it, and it'll get out. It's like, how does that? Where's this little birdie? Where's the bird coming from? It's a metaphor. That, and of course, it's talking about a husband and wife having a conversation in private, but there's still, the Lord is still there. And it can be moved out. And I've watched it happen where somebody says something out of their mouth in a private setting. And it's not that somebody took it and shared it or they bugged their room with something. It's that it manifested out there and it makes its way out. It manifests. That's why we, not out of fear, we have to watch what we say about other individuals, even in private, even in our bed chamber. I want you to chew on that for a minute. We have to watch ourselves. That what we say about other people, what we say about other people's families, what we say about other people's children, we have to watch ourselves. But I know a lot of people, they'll just throw mud, they'll say, they'll judge, they'll criticize. And like, you sure you want to do that? And as they will say, they're the judge, God has called them to judge everyone. It's like, watch it because you have a family too, most people do. Or you have your life. If you don't have a family, you have your life to answer to. So do you really want to throw rocks? Do you really want to throw rocks? Whoever that might be. But to think about it, what am I thinking? What am I saying? Again, I've shared this where we joke a lot. We play around. Me and my family joke around and play around. But not at the expense of putting each other down or somebody else down. We joke in a way that is not tearing somebody down. And it can be done. It can be done. Where you're just joking and playing around. I saw this video, it was real interesting, of this young couple. And it was on social media. And the husband would constantly put like this balloon. I don't know what he puts in it, but some white type of fluid in there. I don't know what it is. Something. And then she walks through and he'll shoot the thing with like a dart gun or something, or throw something at it, and it breaks and spills on her. And then he shoots confetti, and I'm like, I don't know how they get all that done in time. And then she started doing it to him. And then I think he's a police officer. But I'm watching that they have this whole thing going on back and forth, the two of them, him and his wife. And it may have come across your feed. I don't know who they are. It just comes across. And I'm looking, I said, okay, I wouldn't do that. My wife wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. But I understand that's their relationship. They got some playing going on there. But in the sense that joking and playing to me is a healthy thing when it's done without insulting somebody. But some people go and they insult jokingly or just seriously, putting someone down. But it's something that is thought and then comes out the mouth. Comes out our words, our thoughts, our actions. And that's where we have to harness it, put it on a leash, pull it back, and maybe we have to excuse ourselves and go pray or go gather our thoughts, go walk through the park and speak to the Lord, whatever that might be in the workplace. It's just getting dark. Conversation getting dark, and you have to kind of step out of it. You have to step out of it and then find yourself a place of getting it back together into captivity. I think all of us go through it. You probably can use examples to yourself. There's some things that come across in the news. There's some advertisements in movies and things like that I'm just gonna turn that. I'm gonna turn it. I'm gonna change it. I don't want to hear you see this movie. It's like, that looks like a dark movie. I don't even want to see the trailer. I don't even want to see the advertisement of it. I can tell, dark movie, don't need to know it, don't need to understand it, don't want to see if that's any good. I could tell it's dark. I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna go and get that away. Conversations that happen, it's like, okay, I don't need to hear this. My ears don't need to hear this. And I need to get myself where it needs to be, not out of fear, but out of love and my thoughts. And there's so many things, as I have said, the Bible, podcasts, different types of things. I moved one of the young ladies from the church car recently, because all these cars are all over, and I just moved her car, and as I was just moving it up a little bit, I could hear what she had on her stereo going. I think it was probably playing off her phone, but even though she wasn't there, it was a distance away. But she had the Bible going, and the narrator was reading it, and I recognized it was about Apostle Paul in the book of Acts. And I'm just like, okay, and it was just, probably less than 60 seconds, but it was like boom, boom, boom. So I understand, okay, this is what she's doing. She's driving, she's listening to the narration of the book of Acts. This morning, as I was getting ready, I was listening to the book of Ezekiel. Book of Ezekiel is really deep, but it's just something I had going, and I'm just picking up as I'm getting dressed. I'm listening to the book of Ezekiel. That's me. What is it doing? It's my thoughts. It's my thoughts. It's my thoughts. Bringing it into captivity. And then I'll give you this one. I'm not going to say to do it. I'm not going to say not to do it. But I will follow sports, and I've done this for many decades, and I will follow different sporting things, and I will look at the different teams and the different breakdowns. And what that is that's another place for me to go with my thoughts. But I understand that you can stay there too much, like a lot of men do. They're obsessed, like with fantasy football. I'm not going to say that's wrong to play fantasy football. I don't do it. I don't play fantasy football. I have in past, but it's too time consuming for me. Even though I'm saying I will use sports to occupy my mind at times, just to give me something different to think about. But I'm not going to do, when I played fantasy football, I would forget to change my lineup. And those of you that play, you understand what I mean. I'm just like, I'm not going to do this. I got other things to do. I study languages. Even at my age today, I study languages. It's just something I need to do for myself. I'm looking and saying, okay, and I'll look into things. Um, I'll I'll look at even the English language. I'll go through and I'll Google something or read something of how this should be worded or what's the proper sound. The other thing that I do is idiomatic expressions. If idiomatic expressions, idioms, I study where did it get birth from? What does it mean? You hear them all the time. You're barking up the wrong tree. Somebody got their goat. Whatever it is, we speak them all the time. Other languages use them, but if you don't know them, you don't know what they mean. They don't make sense when you translate them verbatim. They don't make sense. You have to know what they mean and in the context, or else it's confusing. But we use them. We know what they mean, but we don't always know where they came from. That's where I'll look and say, okay, what was that birth from? And so many of them are hundreds of years old. They were birthed in a different time in a different place, and they don't have the same thing anymore, but it's nice to know where it came from. These are things that I will do with my tongue. I'm just giving that to you. Again, I use sports, but yourself, maybe you sew, maybe a man goes in the garage and starts working on his vehicle or some other hobby that he has, fishing, hunting, biking, side by sides, hiking, uh, camping, whatever it is, that it helps to bring thoughts into captivity. But first and foremost is the word and prayer. I'm going to start wrapping this up. But as I've spoken about many times now, my grandson, who's 5 years old, and I speak to him, it's at a place, a time in his life now that I really have to start giving him more detailed instructions of what we just talked about. I need to help him in these areas to have a system of thinking, because even a young boy can start wandering off in their mind and get in the wrong thinking, anxiety, emotional, fear, all these things that I have to help them. I say them, those younger people too, and speak their language to them. But I hope I'm helping you today. I hope I'm helping you. I hope this doesn't sound too difficult. I don't think it should be. But again, we don't want to go into dark thoughts. We want to go into the thoughts of what thus saith the Lord. What does the Lord say? Not what the masses say, not what the media says, not what popularity says, but what thus saith the Lord. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. I hope you have a blessed day again. If you'd like to bless us financially, you could text 77977, New Creation AZ, New Creation AZ 77977. You can Zelle 480-295-5778. We will be back here in person, 1363 South Vineyard in Mesa, Arizona, 85210, 12 o'clock noon, Arizona time. Thank you for joining us, and have a blessed, beautiful